Ladies and gentlemen, let's continue where we last left off. So we were speaking about a very important point, that total punches landed and even total power punches, total jabs, are not necessarily a true reflection of who has won the fight, because fights are won by rounds that are won. But what we need is the information, the punch stats for each round, so we can determine who landed more punches and therefore who won the round. Okay? And that was very important. So when we see these punch stats right here, these punch stats indicate and can give us an idea of who is winning what round. Okay? These punch stats per round, unfortunately, they didn't. HBO, and again, credit to HBO right now. Go and subscribe to HBO Sports on YouTube. Also, I would invite you to enjoy HBO Boxing After Dark as well. I think it's on YouTube as well in HBO Sports. And there are a lot of great boxing events that HBO Sports is going to be hosting, so look forward for that. This video is purely for educational purposes, other than me giving a shout out to HBO Sports. It conforms to the Fair Use Act. So what these punch stats show us is that Floyd Mayweather Jr., he won the first 3 rounds, okay, according to them. In fact, he won the first 4 rounds, and then Jose Luis Castillo won the 5th and the 6th. Now, Joe Lederman, on the other hand, he's got it a little differently, but remember, a judge is looking at things in real time, okay? He doesn't have the luxury as I do to go look back at the fight and assess and look at punch percentages connected and all of that stuff. He's just looking at punches landing. All right? He's not even looking at punches thrown. He's looking at punches landed, okay? So, in the case of Castillo and Floyd Mayweather Jr., Lederman actually had Castillo winning the 3rd round, and he actually had Floyd Mayweather winning the 4th round, and then Castillo winning the 5th and the 6th. So we have a little discrepancy between the punch stats and Lederman's scorecard in the 3rd and the 4th rounds. Okay, I had it the other way around. I had Mayweather winning the 3rd and Castillo winning the 4th to the 6th. Okay, now I went to look for round by round punch stats, and the only thing I could come up with, even when I was looking at the video with HBO Sports, was this. Okay? After the 6th round, I don't know why they did it, but they started doing what was called a cumulative scorecard. So up to the 7th round, they'd give you all the punches that landed, up to the 8th and so on as they finish rounds. Okay? And as a result of that, I think it was between either the 7th and the 8th or the 9th and the 10th, they had a cumulative scorecard that could never be accurate, because it was saying that Castillo landed 100 and something punches, and that's not possible. So I think that's where they kind of ballooned their final punch stats, and it kind of skewed out of proportion. All right. So when you look at their final punch stats here, I think this is ballooned up a little too much. But other than that, the pattern that I see, when I verified the information, it follows that pattern. That is, Castillo was the guy landing the significantly larger amount of power punches, and Floyd Mayweather Jr. was landing significantly larger amounts of jabs. Okay. Now, I couldn't find any other round by round punch stats, so this is the reason I came up with. I had to go watch the fight, watch the boxing match. This is the referee. The referee was Vic Draculich. And I had to actually sit down and watch this fight, not in real time. This is right now in real time. I had to actually go and watch it at half of normal speed. This is what I was watching it at. You just saw it in real time. I slowed it down a little bit to half of normal speed. And that's how I was able to come across this scorecard. Now, I established already in the video before that these two boxers were not just throwing punches in bunches. These guys were seasoned, skilled boxers. It was a boxing match you were actually looking at. and intelligent pressure fighting by Jose Luis Castillo. And Jose Luis Castillo is still considered to this day one of the greatest lightweights of all time. Okay, other than Henry Armstrong, Roberto Duran, I think Pernell Whitaker, even though I think he was more of a junior welterweight, and a few others. I think Jose Luis Castillo is right up there. I think Julio Cesar Chavez, I think he was a lightweight as well for a certain period of time. Jose Luis Castillo there is a premier lightweight. And I want to just tell you guys something. When you look at Jose Luis Castillo fight Floyd Mayweather Jr., you see intelligent pressure fighting. And Jose Luis Castillo, he had leaping left hooks, he had uppercuts, he was able to establish distance, he threw a very good jab, and he never really put together more than 3 shots. But they were all varied. They targeted the body, they targeted the head. You know, they had different purposes. You can see this guy knew what punch was for what. And Floyd Mayweather, you know, he has good defense, but if you look at this fight, Jose Luis Castillo also has very good defense. Okay? See, he threw a right hook over Floyd's head, and even though it didn't land, Floyd threw a stab to the pit, and Castillo still kind of gets out of the way of that. So you can see that this is a cat and mouse game. It's beautiful. All right? That's all I got to say about Jose Luis Castillo, okay? Punches and bunches doesn't work. And he cuts off the ring so beautifully. You guys need to watch that. That's like a class in its own self. Okay, now let's look at the fight. First and foremost, I want to say this was an extremely close fight. This was a competitive fight from beginning to end. Now, I'm not going to go into too much about jabs and power punches. This took me like 3 hours to do. But what I will say is that when you look at this, we're going to just boil it down to total punches landed for now. And we're going to look, we already know Floyd landed more of the jabs. Okay? Castillo landed more of the power punches. Okay? I told you there's an adjustment in the amount of punches landed because Castillo got way too much punches landed, too much credit for that when he didn't. But look at the difference in punches landed. Even though Floyd out punches Castillo, it's only by 10 punches. Folks, only by 10 punches. This was a very, very close fight. And my argument about punches landed per round is because sometimes somebody has a ridiculously great round and he may lose the fight, but he may have 3 or 4 really big rounds where he totally dominated the other opponent, and then for the rest of the fight it was competitive and the other opponent beat him, you know. So that's why you don't really look at total punches landed unless it's total punches landed per round. So let's look at total punches landed per round. You look at the first round, Floyd outlands Castillo by only 3 punches. That's how he won that round. Round 2, you could argue it was Castillo's round because they both landed the same amount of punches. Round 3 was Floyd Mayweather's round because he outlanded Castillo by 2. Round 4, again, you can argue it's Castillo's round. It's up to you, you know, because again, they landed the same amount of punches. Round 5, same thing. Round 6 was Castillo's round. Round 7 was Mayweather's round. Round 8 was Mayweather's round, and it was always going to be because at that point, Vic Draculich, he penalized Castillo 1 point for hitting on the break, okay? And it seems as though he was talking to him all the time. Round 9 was Floyd Mayweather's round. Round 10 was Castillo's round, straight up round, because he penalized Floyd Mayweather for pushing off Castillo with his forearm. The 11th round, again, this was a very, very, very close round. Castillo ended the round with an uppercut. Floyd Mayweather landed just 1 extra punch. So it depends on how you look at it. You could give it to Floyd or you could give it to Castillo. And then round 12 was Floyd Mayweather's round. Okay? And you can look at the percentages and all of that. But at the end of the day, this tells you a trend of the fight. Now, why percentages? Because you can look and you can see Castillo starts off, you know, basically throwing a low punch output. And he starts to up his punch output by round 3. He's starting to peak it by round 5. His punch output kind of goes down a little bit and then goes right back up. And it crescendos in round 11. 11th round was a really critical round because this was around round 10 and 11. Floyd Mayweather stopped moving and he started fighting Castillo's fight. And they were going toe to toe. That's why Floyd's punch output also went up for those final rounds, the championship rounds. His punch output went up and then dropped a little bit. Same thing with Castillo, okay? So this kind of tells you the trend of the fight. So you guys can go ahead and analyze this, look at it in much more detail. And basically, however you scored the fight, I had it 8-4 for Floyd Mayweather. I had him winning the final rounds here. I had him winning the 11th and 12th, the 9th, the 8th, the 7th, and the first 3. Okay? But very easily, you could have it scoring for Castillo. You could have Castillo winning the 11th. He definitely won the 10th. Okay? You can have him winning the 6th, 5th, 4th, and 2nd. Okay, which would be 6 rounds, and you can push an extra one in there somewhere, and you could get it 7-5. So this is why some people say Castillo won, or he did enough to retain his title, and that Floyd didn't take it from him. And other people say, well, no, Floyd Mayweather won. This could have been easily a 9-3 or 8-4 fight, depending on if you gave this middle round here to Castillo, because while Floyd didn't win by a significant margin every round, he did win by a margin. And therefore he took the rounds. So that's what makes this fight such an interesting fight. I don't think there was any other fight in the history of Floyd Mayweather's fights that was so close as this fight. It was competitive right down to the end. And that's what makes this fight still one that people talk about a lot. So here's my data. You can look at my data and you can decide, well, if you agree with me or not. But this is the data that I have on the fight, and I did as much research as I can. It took me 3 hours to do this, okay, folks? All right, you guys, have a great day.